Great. And then Matt should be joining too, but I think we'll go ahead and get started, and I'm sure he'll join in a minute or two. Okay, welcome everyone. I'll officially call to order the annual Urban Flood and Water Quality District budget hearing. Good afternoon. My name is Harmony Quiros. I'm the chair of the Tax Supervising and Conservation Commission. Welcome everybody. The TSCC is a community oversight commission established by the Oregon legislature more than 100 years ago. The commission oversees the budgets of all TSCC member taxing districts and annually conducts a thorough budget review and certification process. Additionally, the TSCC holds public budget hearings like this one to engage with district leadership and provide additional opportunity for public comment before budget adoption. I'll now ask my fellow commissioners and the staff to introduce themselves and state if they have any business relationships with the district that could be perceived as a conflict of interest.
Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. James Ofsing-Kihim. I'm the vice chair of the Tax Supervising and Conservation Commission. This is my 8th and final year, and you have the special distinction of, I think, being the only district that has started while I've served. So it was really cool to see that whole process. And I don't have any business relationships with the district that could be perceived as a conflict of interest. And I'll pass it over to Margot.
Hello, good afternoon. My name is Margot Norton. James and I are in the same class. We're in our 8th and final year because we're term limited out. And it has been an honor to serve with TSCC and also to see this district begin. I think we've been meeting with you since 2020. I believe this is our 4th one. In my prior life, I was a government finance officer, worked with Mr. Middaugh at Metro, where I retired as their CFO. And I have no business relationships with the district.
Hello, my name is Mark Wobold. This is my 6th year with the TSCC. I just retired in June of last year. And so in my working years, I was a senior policy analyst at Portland State University in the president's office. And I have no perceived or real conflicts of interest with the district. And Matt, if you're out there, it's up to you. It's on to you.
I'm here, Mark. Hi, everyone. Matt Donahue, 2nd year as commissioner with the TSCC. My day job is with DA Davidson and Company as a municipal banker and financial advisor. I have no relationships with the district that are conflicted. Thank you.
Go ahead, Allegra.
Thanks, Harmony. I'm Allegra Wilhite, and I am Executive Director with TSCC, and I will pass it on to Tuni.
Tuni Betchart, and I am the Budget Analyst with TSCC.
Thank you. Again, my name is Harmony Quiros. This is my 4th year with TSCC. I've ramped up right alongside the Urban Flood District. So happy to be here. This is my 2nd year as chair, and in my other life, on the other screen of my computer, I work in K-12 education, science education. All right, well, we're going to start with some introductory comments from the district, after which we'll hear public comment, and then we'll ask our questions and discuss the budget with you. So I'll turn the floor over to Executive Director Middaugh, and if you want to go ahead and introduce yourself and have any folks, probably the rest of the folks, introduce themselves as well as part of your introductory remarks, that'd be great.
Sure. My name is Jim Middaugh. I am the Executive Director of the Multnomah County Drainage District and the Urban Flood Safety and Water Quality District. I use he, him pronouns. I want to start by thanking the commissioners for your public service and your time. We recognize how valuable it is to have this independent oversight to build and maintain public trust, which is the resource that fuels all community action like the work we are endeavoring to complete. I want to say that we look forward in the future to having more complicated budgets for you to review. And in that regard, I'd like to acknowledge the support we currently receive from our colleagues at the City of Portland, who are the sole providers of the revenue, or virtually the sole providers of the revenue that we are using to start up this new entity to serve the common good here in the greater Portland region. What you have before you in our budget is the product of a lot of excellent service from our volunteer board of directors, and the combination of their skills, time, and expertise has helped inform the limited choices we have within the resources available. I also want to acknowledge Lori Baker and our budget and finance and program teams who collaborated around building this budget and trying to do a lot of work with limited resources. And so with that, we look forward to your questions, and we want to again acknowledge the volunteer service of our 17-member board, virtually all of whom have other work that they do and donate their time to help with this important initiative. And I think with that, I'm not sure how to organize the introductions, but why don't I start with Lori Baker, and then you can popcorn it, I think, after that.
Sounds good. Good afternoon. I'm Lori Baker, and I am the Director of Finance and Administration for MCDD and for the Urban Flood Safety Water Quality District. That's a long word, right? And I am going to hand it over to Tanny.
Good afternoon. I'm Tanny Staphenson, and I'm a board member of the Urban Flood Safety Water Quality District and also a board member of the Sandy Drainage Improvement Company. And I'm going to hand it off to Corky.
My name is Corky Collier. I'm a board member of MCDD and also a board member of the Urban District. And I will hand it to Heather.
Hey there, everybody. My name's Heather King. I use she, her pronouns. I am the executive director of the Columbia Slough Watershed Council and a member of the Urban Board as well. I will hand it over to Colin.
Thanks. Hi, I'm Colin Rowan. I use he, him pronouns. I'm the Director of Planning and Public Affairs. And want to thank you all for your public service here, as well as our board members. And I will hand it over to Nancy.
Hello there. Good afternoon. My name is Nancy Hendrickson. I'm on the Urban Flood Safety Water Quality District Board, and I work at the City of Portland. And I'm going to hand it over to Mary Helen.
I'm Mary Helen Kincaid. I live in the East Columbia neighborhood. I'm on the Penn 2 Board of Supervisors and serve on the interim board of the Urban Flood Safety Water Quality District. And I'm retired, so I truly am a volunteer. And I'll hand it over to Bob Salinger.
Hi, I'm Bob Salinger. I'm a member of the board, and I'm also the Urban Conservation Director for Willamette Riverkeeper, and I'll hand it over to James.
Hey Bob, James Allison. I'm a Penn 1 board member, as well as a member of the Urban Flood Safety Water Quality District. In my day job, I work for City of Portland Bureau of Environmental Services. And I will hand it over to Eric Molander.
I'm aware from correspondence with Eric that he knows he's not on the hook for answering a question, so he may have stepped away. He is a Penn 2 president of the Penn 2 board and also a member of the Urban Board.
I believe Brent Cartwright, are you in attendance? Can you introduce yourself next?
Hi, can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
This is Brent. I'm with the Urban Board as well, and I work for Diversified Marine, a small business in the Penn 1 district.
Hong, would you like to introduce yourself?
You're on mute.
Of course I am. It's a meeting. Hong Nguyen, I am district counsel, providing legal services to all the districts. Thank you for having me.
And Angel? I will introduce myself. In the meantime, I'm Wendy Lynn. I'm the board coordinator for MCDD and other boards.
I think we don't have a speaking role for Angel or Kenny. They both work on staff, and Ben Rowe is a member of the public.
Great.
Oh, Eric Mueller. I'm sorry, Eric.
No problem. Eric Mueller. I'm a resident in the managed floodplain in MCDD. I serve on the Urban Board as the City of Fairview's representative, but you'll see Troutdale there because my day job is I'm the finance director for the City of Troutdale.
Great. I think we'll go ahead and move on. Should anybody else join and speak, we'll go ahead and let them introduce themselves when they're speaking. I'll now call on any members of the public who would like to speak. Each person will be limited to 3 minutes of public comment, and we'll let you know when you're nearing the end of your time. Allegra or Wendy, do we have anybody signed up or anybody with their hands raised in the meeting to testify?
We had no one signed up in advance with TSCC. So unless Wendy has someone who is raising their hand right now, I don't think we have public comment.
I did not receive any request for public comment.
Okay, great. I think we'll go ahead and dive into our questions. And Mark, you have the first one.
Good deal. Nancy, I was struck by that map behind you when you introduced yourself. It shows the complexity of what you all are trying to do, merge those 4 districts. And we've been tracking your timelines for the work that you need to do to launch the new district, such as revenue model completion, electing a new board, etc. We imagine the actual work may be more difficult than originally envisioned. What challenges have you faced in completing this work? And what do you wish you had done differently? Has there been anything you found that is actually easier than you originally thought?
So in the questions, I'm not sure I was signed up to answer that one, but I could certainly take a shot at it.
I don't know that you were, but I just love that map, and I thought it was a wonderful illustration of the complexity of what you're trying to do.
Thanks.
I don't know who's on the hook for this question.
I'm on the hook. That's a good way of putting it for this question. This is, not a simple question, not a simple answer. I would say this is the most challenging issue, or one of our most challenging issues. It's the application, is the ability to collect a utility fee, which was our one of our primary and early mechanisms for developing the financial resources for this new district. There are legal, technical, financial, political challenges with the use of a utility fee that were not fully understood during the legislative process, which established that ability that really for the district to collect a utility fee. Legally, the challenge is maintaining the appropriate nexus and proportionality of a fee in the collection of the fee. So in short, the new district is seeking to collect a fee on the basis of benefits received for payers outside of the managed floodplain. That requires a different basis than the district's partner municipal stormwater and utilities use to charge for stormwater. And technically, a fee-based approach collected by partner agencies would require the new district to adapt software for at least 5 and likely 7 of the different utility billing systems to collect a fee based on benefits received outside of the floodplain. Partner agencies staff in the district spent a lot of time meeting with partner agencies, and those agencies, City of Portland being one of them, suggested that while this approach is doable, it would be complex, time-consuming, expensive, and maybe prone to bugs or glitches and other challenges that we don't even understand at this time. Financially, the district evaluated independent collection services to avoid the previously described legal and technical issues. And those services like the Portland Arts Tax, Housing Services Tax, the preschool tax proved to be exceptionally expensive, like $3 to $4 million a year for billing and customer services alone. And those resulted in a significant under collection, topping out at about 80%, but starting out at about 60%. And because the new district is unable to really shut off our services, the levies and pump stations are effectively always in use and for good reason. But collection became a costly challenge, adding millions of dollars without any added benefit or value. So politically, the shift from an assessment approach on property tax bills to a utility fee resulted in concerns about at least 3 matters. First, the shift to a fee results in the loss of homeowners' ability to deduct costs from their federal taxes. Secondly, the cost of assessments on many properties in the floodplain is considerably larger than typical stormwater charges, often orders of magnitude larger. So staff heard concerns that city councils would be challenged to put such large fees on our stormwater bills. And lastly, the shift to a fee would also eliminate the effects of compression for flood safety assessments on the floodplain. So while that's an important goal, shifting to a fee in a single step would result in massive cost increases, in some cases tens of thousands of dollars in a single year. And staff believe that the shift is very challenging and cause significant harm to a range of businesses in the district. So due to these challenges, staff is now recommending that the district maintain assessments based on property ownership in the floodplain, at least for now, and that the district shift its focus to the use of a privilege tax on gross receipts from municipal stormwater utilities. Those changes will require amendments to the authorizing statute at the state level. I imagine there might be follow-up questions to that. Mark, you're muted, I think.
Incredibly complex, and you've done a wonderful job of laying that out, the complexities and the difficulties. Can you talk to us a little bit about something you wish you might have done differently? And has there been anything that has actually been easier than you originally thought? And I see Mary Helen has a hand up. Maybe she's going to help out.
I guess I just wanted to point out order. I wasn't invited to answer any of the questions, but I do have some comments. And if that's for later after all the questions have been asked, or I didn't know how best to present those, or if I can.
I think if they're in, I think if they're in direct response to any of the questions being asked or follow-up, we're happy to hear your comments when you're ready. If there are general comments, I think we'll leave space at the end.
Okay. I do want to comment about what was hard and what was easy. Easy was convincing people that something needed to be done to upgrade the system, how the drainage districts operated. But was not easy for me was to determine, and I'm still not absolutely positive. I was the one lone board member that voted not to adopt the budget, and that was because I wasn't clear on what it would cost my neighbors and my concern for the cost to people that could not afford a 20% increase. And my fellow board members have heard me say this. I have a neighbor who lives on a fixed income, works 2 jobs, has 3 kids, and if his rent increased $20 a month, he would not eat for a day for his children. And so there needed to be a accommodation for people with incomes lower than whatever the going amount is. The water company, the water bill does it, electricity does it. So those were my concerns. So I think that was the hard part for me, was to come to understand what I believe it was 9 different proposed budgets were. And that's why I could not vote for the budget. So that was a difficult thing. And I tend to be portrayed as somebody that asks a lot of questions. So all of that made it difficult to not be the one that asked a lot of questions, and staff was very accommodating in answering questions that I had, but and I appreciate all of their work, but I just sort of needed more, and that's the comment I wanted to make.
Great, thank you.
And it looks like Jim has his hand up as well.
I would want to reflect that through all the iterations and complexities we've uncovered as we've tried to implement, we have received unwavering and consistent flexibility and collaboration from all of our local government partners. And while they've poked us pretty hard on some challenging issues, they stay at the table, and their commitment to making this work has been really refreshing. I've done a lot of intergovernmental work, and just the consistency of the support has really been terrific. And I want to acknowledge our partners for all of that support.
And James, did you have another comment?
It just, I think, appreciate Mary Helen's comments. And Mary Helen and a lot of us have been involved in this effort for 6, 7, 8 years. And I guess what I would say, what's been, it's interesting to think about things being more difficult or less difficult. I think everyone knew this was going to be a challenge. And what has been, what's been not more difficult or less difficult, but what has been predictable and I think very positive is that the staff have worked very hard to get these 4 legacy districts continuing to come to the table, represent diverse opinions. And when we hit a dead end, as we appear to have hit with the utility fee, there was a moment of recognition, but then the staff have pivoted toward finding new solutions and continuing to engage the diverse stakeholders on the board in terms of what will work. So from my perspective, we're continuing to solve problems and work hard to find the right level of service, the right budget amount, and then hopefully the right mechanism for collection. I think we're just still working through all those problems, and I really welcome comments from people like Tanny Stephenson and Eric Mueller, Nancy, others who've been with us for a long time to reflect on maybe what's worked and what hasn't worked. Thank you.
All right. Well, I think James foreshadowed for us a bit of your discussion of the revenue. Every year for 4 years, I've had the money questions, and I want to discuss a little bit more of the operating revenue, and then later in the program, we'll be talking about capital revenue and your plans for general obligation bonds. We had the opportunity to look at this really snazzy chart that was in your January board meeting. This is the schedule for revenue development and initiation of dissolution. At that time, it said you would be on the verge of a decision, a final decision like this month, with the possibility of revenue collection beginning before the end of the year or just at the first of the year. We hear that may have slipped somewhat. So we sort of like a little bit better sense of the timing on this. James identified what looks like is the leading contender of your revenue choices, but if you could talk about the preferred options and how confident are you that you will begin collecting and operating revenue in this budget year? It's not one of your budget resources, but what do you think is going to happen? Anyone?
James, you're on mute.
Sorry, I hit the wrong button there. Thank you, Margot. I'll try to answer this as best I can. I definitely would appreciate support from other board members and staff. But you are correct that we have shifted our timeline. The staff right now are working with the board to find the successful revenue model, and the work is continuing on this step of the process. In fact, we have a meeting right after this meeting. We have a board meeting, a couple of very important board meetings coming up this month and next month to make progress on this issue. The staff is recommending that the board approve seeking amendments to the district's authorizing statute to transfer the legacy district's property assessment authority to the new district for the floodplain. And staff are also recommending that the board authorize seeking authority for the new district to implement a privilege tax on stormwater utilities in the district. And the board members are currently evaluating these recommendations. So there's a lot of uncertainty, but we're kind of working through things, I think, in a stepwise approach where we're really trying to hone in on the budget amount, what we call the year one budget amount, as soon as possible. while we're moving toward what would need to be put in place to agree about the methodology or the vehicle, the tool, if you will, for collection. Not sure if I answered that question completely. It looks like Jim's got his hand up, so he's got the best sense for the timeline.
I can jump in and again want to make sure I defer to board members, but I do not expect that we will have a new revenue source in the upcoming budget year. If everything goes the way we hope it will, we should be able to initiate new revenue flows beginning in the following fiscal year. That will require an act of the legislature, and it will also require board approval, which we do not currently have. We do believe in the Venn diagram between the benefits of a fee-based system and what we're proposing. We have significantly shrunk the distance among those two circles, but we have more conversation to have. We do believe the privilege tax provides many of the benefits of the fee without some of the complexities, but we have more conversations to have about continuing the assessments on the floodplain because of the inherent inequities caused by compression. Again, we have some strategies to try and reduce the impact of compression and shift those resources over time to a methodology that, with any luck, resolves that challenge in the long run. But once again, we don't expect new revenues coming in this fiscal year, and depending on the outcome of a legislative session, it would be possible with board approval and legislative success to begin collecting new revenue in the following fiscal year.
I have a follow-up on that, Jim. I think we may have mistakenly assumed that your district formation also provided the statutory authority. You have a matter pending before the legislature now with regard to your operational revenue?
We are continuing to discuss with our board the challenges associated with our current legislative authority. And it is staff's current best thinking. We do not have a clear recommendation yet, but we believe the district would benefit from additional amendments to provide additional authorities related to the issuance of a privilege tax and the ability of the new district to maintain the existing assessment methodology or one consistent with it on the floodplain for some period of time.
Thanks. And then also to be sure that we understand what we had been expecting since the beginning, that when you finally developed a revenue source, that one of the benefits of this larger unified district was that it would impact all residents, community members in the Multnomah County urban growth boundary, and not just the traditional adjacent property owners of the 4 districts. It's been a while since your district was formed. All 5 of us are residents of Multnomah County. It's a requirement of holding these positions. And I'm pretty sure we all live within the urban growth boundary. How confident are you that the payers in your new district are aware of what you are planning, and how have you been staying in touch with some of us that have not been members of your district before?
Corky, I saw your hand was up. I want to give board deference here. I'm happy to jump in as well.
Well, I was just going to comment on Jim's earlier reply, elaborate just a little bit that when we went to the legislation initially to get the taxing authority that we received, we trimmed it down in order for simplicity and to get that through the legislature. And we were hopeful that our plan would go, proceed without any complications. Now we're saying, gee, maybe we should not have trimmed our options down. And that's a little bit of what we're doing now is perhaps going back to the legislature. And it's all with good intent. So for example, we really, from the very beginning, kind of took off the table the idea of more property taxes because of the problems of compression. And that right there limits your options when you remove one of your viable options. But it was for a good reason. So I'm optimistic as we move forward and we go back to the state for more for a different authority, that they'll understand that it's all with the intent of assessing these fees as fairly as possible and avoiding complications such as tax compression.
And Vice Chair Allison, I know you were on tap to answer Margot's follow-up. I want to
Well,
refer to you.
yeah,
I apologize.
thank you. And then Margot, I feel like your follow-up actually is similar
The
to
next question.
Should we have that, the kind of community engagement part as part of that? And I think you're muted, Margot.
I'm
I think, yes.
I think I wasn't. Thank you for your clarification, Cookie. It sounds to me as if nothing will happen this year under the best of circumstances. It sounds as if you are relying on some legislative clarification, which may be in jeopardy, not because of your measure, but because of what's going on in the legislature, which might push this a little bit further. And so I think that I will not continue in this line of questioning, and we'll move forward. But clearly, my colleagues will be very interested when they return next year.
Yes.
All right. So I think Margot teed this up well in terms of how the conversations are going with the broader public, right? We're hearing about the complications, the complexities of the issue you're dealing with. And we know last year you proposed to spend a considerable time and money for communications and public engagement, introducing the new district, previewing these potential revenue sources, gauging public regional acceptance, and then also the electing new board, so finding new board candidates. Can you talk to us a little bit about how that communications plan is going? Do you feel that you're meeting your objectives and voters are aware? How is the election of future board members and candidates going? Conversations around future revenue needs, et cetera.
Okay, well, as one of the newer board members, I will answer that question. So our board was initially charged with developing the revenue structure to support the operating and capital needs of the district. And we believe that this requires ongoing efforts to build awareness and develop community trust. So during FY23, we utilized the communications budget to support the development of a general obligation fund package, including creating a new public face of the bond effort, and that's the Flood Safe Columbia River, called Flood Safe Columbia River. Through that branding effort, we've introduced it to a variety of audiences, including neighborhood groups, community-based organizations, and environmental nonprofits. We've presented at community events and are tabling at events most weekends. We have also established an engagement and outreach work group comprised of board members and stakeholders that will guide the engagement effort through the next year. I can speak directly to that as the ED of the Columbia Slough Watershed Council, because we did a public webinar and the people from the public that attended asked really great questions and were in support of what was happening. And then most recently, we had a huge community event. There were about 500 people present, and there was a table there with Flood Safe Columbia River information, and everybody was stopping and learning about it. So it was really kind of, as a board member, it was really nice to see. And continuing on, the FY24 budget makes it possible that we can continue the progress on the communications plan, to continue to provide education, including mailings, and to pay for election costs associated with the May 2024 ballot. As we go from about 8,000 residents in the legacy districts to about 800,000 residents, we know that a lot of people likely do not know that we have levies in Multnomah County. We know that a lot of people and that there's a considerable flood risk and that we need to operate, maintain, and improve the system like all other infrastructures. So our goal is to bring this information to as many people as possible through lots of different multimedia efforts.
Thank you. I think the next question will ask some more questions, some more details.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to ask a question about kind of
Go
the
ahead.
board recruitment side of the communication plan. Thank you, Heather, for your comments. We're definitely aware of the kind of big challenges, and I think in a lot of the questions we've asked already of the, changing number of community members within the district. And I heard, that direct mailing, I heard community outreach events and events with partners. For the direct mailing piece, are you picturing that at some point having a direct mailing that would go to kind of 800,000 or however many households it is in the district, or is the mailing targeted to the existing members? Or I guess just trying to get a sense for, I do think, social media and like events and stuff that is going to reach, a lot of people, but for something that might add a lot of money to folks's, I don't know. I guess it depends on what the revenue source is, but theoretically going to add a lot of money to a lot more people than have been aware of the urban flood issues in the past. Just wondering if we're thinking postcards to like every household, or I don't know. What the strategy is for those folks who are not going to kind of be organically accessible through like community events or people who are interested in these issues already.
If we may have Colin Rowan, our Director of Public Affairs, take that on, that would be great. Colin, I see your hand is up.
Yes, thank you for that question and that follow-up. It is a big challenge, as you noted. It is a big constituency, and as Heather pointed out, a lot of people don't even know that the levies exist. And so we have a big education effort in front of us, and there is an intention of doing direct mailing basically to all the new members of the Urban Flood Safety Water Quality District. And so that would be educational material to let people know about the levee system, the services we provide, and why it's so important to our region. We also will be looking for opportunities, things like media buys. When you sign online to different websites, you see a drop down where you can click and using that in a more targeted way down to people in our specific geography, and also looking for opportunities for earned media, really being able to get the message out there. We have a lot of great messengers that we've developed through this regional partnership over the years across the different organizations, community-based organizations, and government entities that have been a part of this. So really looking for ways that we can amplify our message and get more people to understand what we're doing, why we're doing it, and how it's going to affect them. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for the clarification on that. That's great. Really happy to hear that. And I know it's, still under development. I'm sure we'll hear more about it in the future, and I'll probably see it in my mailbox at some point or on a website that I'm on. So now speaking more targeted about the board recruitment. So we're wondering if there's on the communication front, work going into actively recruiting board members to be candidates for the elected board. And then if, as you all are thinking about it, are there particular kind of skill sets that you're hoping that the incoming board is going to have?
Sure, I can take that one on. So staff has been, and board members have been reminding partners, stakeholders about the upcoming election for board members and encouraging them to move in that direction. You may or may not be aware, the governor appoints, I believe it's 4 of the board members based on particular skill sets. And then the other 5 will be elected. The feeling is that we probably shouldn't be defining the skill set. That's up to the voters to define. At the same time, as we reach out, to folks that might want to be, that are interested in running for these positions, I can say for just personally, my own perspective on it is that, we're looking for people that can unite 5 municipalities, 4 legacy drainage districts, and bring them all together. We're looking for folks that can unite businesses, with homeowners, with environmental advocates, all folks that are interested in the drainage districts. And then on top of all that, somebody that has a really good sense of government finance. You know, just off the top of my head, those are some skill sets that I would be looking for and that I would be suggesting to people.
Thank you.
I have a follow-up, Harmony.
Go ahead, Margot.
I was wondering when I saw the original timing and your election of your board in May of 2024 and potentially a general obligation measure in 2024. And now the deferring of a final decision on a privilege tax, which I think half of your people will think is a sales tax, and the other half of people will think is a business tax. Are you expecting an operating revenue decision prior to the election of the new board, or are you hoping to use your board members to help inform the public about an upcoming revenue measure?
Shall I take that, board members, or Corky, you want to?
Off the cuff, I would say that ideally they would kind of go hand in hand, that we could use that the board member, the potential board members, the ones that are running for election, to help us spread that message. You know, let's go ahead and kill two birds with one stone, right? I mean, they're getting out there talking to folks. Let's also talk about the other ballot measure at the same time. And while we're at it, by the way, since one of the skills that we would definitely be interested in somebody with a good sense of government finance, which one of you might be interested in, you know, I mean, you know, we're just trying to get the word out. So please, you know, if this interests you, please give us a call.
Margot and James are retiring from TSCC in a matter of months, so.
Perfect.
I think maybe to make sure I hit your question, Margot, the capital bond would require a vote of the public. The methodologies that the staff is recommending for operating revenue currently do not require a vote of the public. So the two questions before voters in May of 2024 would be the election of our board and approval of a general obligation bond for capital. Not sure that was the question you asked, but.
Yes, thanks. I get that. It's just that board members customarily are less limited than staff in advocating for measures. And so you will have people who are not part of the decision making on either a GO bond for capital and distinguishing that from a revenue measure. These are people that may not have been part of the decision making. It will be hard for me to see how they can be an advocate.
I see. Thank you. I appreciate that complexity.
Mary Helen, did you have something?
I just wanted to comment on the community outreach. It's one of my main concerns for the last 6 or 7 years has been the lack of knowledge about what was mentioned, that there was a levy. I'm part of a group that's called the Citywide Land Use Group. We meet informally when some big issue happens. And I have lately been asking them, it's from all the neighborhood coalitions in the city that's operated by OCCNL, if they knew where the levy was, and they don't. And my other concern is that, or predominantly they don't. Some people do because they travel that for work, a Marine Drive for work, and have seen signs and keep up on those kinds of things. My other concern has been landowners meetings that have had historically very low attendance in Penn 2. I think there used to be at most 20 people that would come to the Portland Yacht Club. And I suspect that was because they had really good food that they served everybody. And you know, one good way to get people to a public meeting is offer them food. And so that was, a couple of people even said, we come for the desserts because they're always left over. So I think we need to focus as a board. I serve on several citizen action committees, and I think that as a board, we need to step up those efforts to get the landowners more informed, because I recently broke my hip and had surgery, so I can't do this. But prior to that, last summer, I did a bike ride around the neighborhood and asked everybody I saw out walking if they knew what the levee district did. And they said, yeah, they keep us dry. And I asked them if they knew about the new urban flood safety and why they didn't come to a landowners meeting. And they said, we don't have to, we don't have a problem. So I don't want to be the harbinger of you could, that negative measure is vote for this or the flood will wash you away like the Columbia River flood. But we also need to be able to get the word out to people of what could happen if we didn't operate in a fiscally responsible, more organized way. So my concern is highly in the community engagement so people don't get surprised. Because when they get surprised, they get angry and they won't participate. So.
Thanks, Mary Helen. Go ahead, Matt.
Thanks, Harmony. So kind of a more technical budget question, but we did notice that your budget fully appropriates your available resources. So there's a zero line on the ending fund balance. I assume this was not an accident. So we would just like to hear more about the plans for contingency and why that was the decision made on this budget.
Well, I believe that one is passed me, and it's pretty straightforward. As a new district, we have, as you've been noting and questioning about where our revenue sources are coming from. Currently, we don't have a revenue source, and we're living on borrowed money. And so, for the upcoming budget, we're attempting to apply every single available resource we have to continue the work of getting us through our tasks and getting to the election and getting to the GO bond election. So the budget reflects the limited resources and the fund balance and available borrowing from the city of Portland, who's been very supportive with their the line of credit arrangement they provided for us several years ago. It's challenging to develop a balanced budget in this context, but we're doing everything we can. Lori and her team are watching it closely, and if we have unanticipated expenses, the board will have to address those, potentially have to deal with the supplemental budget process.
Thanks, Eric. I think the next question is almost a follow-up on this in terms of how things went last year compared to no contingency. So I'm going to let Mark ask his, and then we'll come back to you, Mary Helen, if that's okay. We've got 12 minutes, so I'm trying to keep us moving.
And we've got a wonderful record of staying on time, so we don't want to screw that up. So this is resource allocation part B, I guess. So we noticed that district MCDD is staffing this effort, and the amount that they're expected to exceed budget estimate is 87%. That caught our eye. Why were the costs more than expected? And did MCDD staff take on work originally expected to be completed by consultants?
Mark, I'll take that one. And there's two components to how MCDD charges the time to the urban district. One is basically we have a percentage of someone's time, a salaried individual that's allocated, and then other ones are variable time where they're charged on an hourly basis. And when we adopted the budget for 2022-23, we did not include budget dollars for the ones that are charged on an hourly basis. So that was an oversight in the process that created this shortage.
Got it. Okay, thank you.
Mary Helen, did you have something to respond? Let me make sure. Okay, great. Okay, Margot, you're up.
All right, we'll just abbreviate right into the question. It sounds like you are committed to a GO bond election in 2024. Do you have specifics for the voters in terms of what they are raising capital for? And also, could you clarify, we understand that part of the GO bond selling point could be return on investment in that you would use bond dollars to attract federal match. What's the likelihood of that, and what happens if you are not successful.
I think that one also was to me. So, I think it had been mentioned earlier in some of the response and some of the other questions. We're very much still in that process. There's been ongoing discussion and questions from board members regarding the kind of composition and nature of the capital projects that we would want to include, and as we try and total up to an amount that we would want to ask for in the election. Certainly, if we were unsuccessful at the first election in May, we'd be back to the drawing board with our election consultants and analyzing what the approach might be for an appropriate retry in November. Certainly, one of the selling points is the federal match for the much of the PLMS projects. That's certainly going to be, I believe, from the initial preliminary polling, an attractive feature that those that are supportive have indicated. So it still is in process, but I think that answers what your question was.
Yes, thank you. I don't know whether you know or not, but should you proceed with the geo measure in the spring of next year, that is also one of TSCC's responsibilities. So we will be holding a similar hearing for your geo measure. And we like to hold them before ballots go out to the voters. So you need to be thinking about that in your timeline. And at that time, we will be looking very specifically to what projects you are placing before the voters, and again, the likelihood of securing a federal match. So more to come.
Thanks, Margot. And we have a question if time, but we'll see. I have the final question if we run out of time. Can we talk a little bit about, so obviously the location of your district with the Columbia River bordering both Oregon and Washington offers its own set of challenges. Would you talk to us a little bit about how managing the relationship with partner agencies on the Washington side, how that's going? We saw that the district toured new levee improvements near Washougal recently. So can you talk to us about those partnerships and how each side of the river is ensuring that one side's actions don't adversely affect the other?
Sure, that one's on me. And I will say we're all working with the Army Corps of Engineers, so there's a natural connection there. And just to put it into perspective, when the Army Corps analyzed the projects that we have in order to reaccredit the floodplain and the levees, it looked like what the conclusion was is that there would be a less than 1 inch increase in water level during a 1,000-year flood. So context again, we manage for the 100-year flood. So this is negligible in terms of the infrastructure that we manage on this side of the river and the other side of the river. And to complete the answer, are the staff at the districts and the current district, because it will be the same staff, they have a relationship with our partners across the river and are continuing to reach out to them during this time as we modernize our district.
Great, thank you. James, do you want to go for the last question?
I imagine it might be more than a 2-minute answer, but I will, especially given that the district has a meeting following this, you all will have to be parsimonious with your response, be focused. But we know that your district, like many districts, is really trying to take equity into account. And we spoke in previous years about the equity framework that you've established. And we wanted to just talk about, a year later, how is your equity framework proceeding, and if there are any kind of tangible things that you'd like to communicate to us and the public about decisions that were made differently through the use or were heavily influenced through the use of the equity framework.
Yeah, that one's mine as well. And yes, that's correct. We adopted an equity framework, and I'm going to I have the follow-up question here too about what you would do differently. So I'm going to try and weave them together. So this isn't we're not building a district from the ground up. We are actually collating 4 districts together, coalescing, integrating. And because each of the 4 districts had already worked on equity plans, we were able to build off of that. So 2 main points. One is that we are wrestling as a board as we try and shrink the budget, how much we can put forth for our 4 additional mandates in the legislation. Equity is one of them. And we are working on, the staff have been working on incorporating these mandates into their work. And I'll give you some tangibles for recruitment and retention. The staff is focused on the first pieces of equity having to do with recruitment and retention, and also procurement to opening. Oh, there's some really good language in here, but basically using the procurement process to benefit businesses operated by people of color. And so those have been some very specific initial work that has been done towards equity. We do have 500,000 in our shrunken budget for next year that is directed towards the new mandates, and I'll just list them off, being equity, cultural history, climate resilience, and environmental benefit. It's a small amount for those things, but it's at this point we are still struggling with that as a board, and you'll be hearing more of that as our revenue structure becomes set up and we get rolling. Those numbers may change.
Thanks, Nancy. And to put, in context, we talked to a lot of districts, and that's a significant investment for a district of your size. So we'll look forward to continuing to hear about how it's going as things develop further. Thank you.
Sure. And I do want to note one other thing, particularly with what Mary, dovetailing on what Mary Helen mentioned earlier, is that one of the things we're looking at, as with other utilities and districts in the area, is how can we give relief to lower income communities in our district, and that's also part of our budget discussion as it pertains to equity.
Thanks so much, Nancy. And thanks to everyone for your contributions to this discussion. We've covered a lot of areas, a lot of ground in just 60 minutes. And we know that this is a very complex thing that you're trying to build. We are thankful to be kind of witnesses and participants in this process, and look forward to possibly a bond hearing in the spring, and certainly to follow up on all of this again next year during the budget season. So with that, I'll officially close the hearing and open a regular business meeting of the TSCC. Commissioners, do you have any additional comments on the budget?
No.
Okay, thanks everyone. Allegra, can you please provide review the staff recommendations for the certification letter?
Yes, I'd be happy to do so. I do want to start by commending the urban flood staff. Well, you're also staff of MCDD, but the folks who have been doing all the work on this budget, because it's clear there's been so much hard work, not just during this period, but throughout the year. And we really appreciate the proactive conversations about, little budget law nuances that come up. Staff are excellent about reaching out, discussing them with us to make sure that everything's within compliance. So thank you for that. I also want to say, for this upcoming budget, for the fiscal year 23-24 approved budget, we found the budget estimates to be reasonable for the purposes stated, and the budget to be in substantial compliance with budget law. So TSCC staff have no recommendations or objections to the budget.
Thanks so much, Allegra. May I have the motion authorizing the commission to sign the certification letter as recommended by staff?
I will move.
Thanks, Matt.
I'll second, Mark.
Thank you, Mark. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 The Urban Flood Safety and Water Quality District, I can almost do it off the top of my head, budget for the next fiscal year is so certified by the TSCC. Allegra will provide the certification letter shortly after this meeting. Thanks again, everyone.
Thank you. Really
Right
just
on time, Harmony.
I know, right on the dot.
Thank you, everybody.
Okay,
Bye-bye.
Thank you very much. This was my first meeting, so it was
welcome.
exciting.
Happy to have you.
Good.
thank you, Mary
Good,
Helen.
Mary Ellen.